my God, you would not believe the mosquitoes here. I just lathered up the horses with bug dope. It's so relieving. You can tell when their tails hang straight down. You can tell the discomfort in a horse miles away. And they finally are relaxed. And if anybody's curious what we have going on in Canada right now, Western Canada, we just busted the highest temperature in Canadian history since they've been recording with modern man the other day, and I think it's going to go up to 47 tomorrow, whatever that is, 114 or something. I know a lot of people that aren't familiar with Canada think it's all ice and igloos up here, but it's not, right? We got desert here too. We got it all. But anyway, so the police have issued saying any family in our area with children must go to a hotel which is paid for, and you can't be here because the river, the Lillooet River, if you want to Google it, and a few others like the Birkenhead River is busting at the seams. The Lillooet River is way up high, and there's another, the Green River dumps into it too. And I guess if it bursts, we're looking to get some water right where I'm standing. So I'm staying with the horses, obviously. I can hear somebody at a lawnmower going over there. I guess they're not going. But most of the neighbors who have children, they've gone away, they've left. So it's not a life-threatening thing, obviously. I mean, these guys, all I got to do is go back behind me 300 yards and we climb the hill. It's all good. But that won't happen if nobody's here, right? So in the meantime, so also today we were packing to move. Packed so much. It's so hot right now. I'm so sticky. Everybody's sticky. I think I did 2 different times. I sprayed the horses down with the garden hose. It was so funny. If I can, I'll load a clip of this guy behind me because he always acts like he's terrified of the hose. But I had it on full blast, and he just wanted the hose straight in his face. It was so funny. If I get that video off my phone, I'll add it in here for the curious. So everybody's content. They're cool. I got mosquito repellent on them. They're not getting bugged. I just stomped a horsefly with my hat. But while I was moving, I came across a letter. Pretty sure I didn't read it yet. I don't think I did. And it came from a man, James H. I won't say his name. I'm not sure if I can say his name yet. But it came from a man in Langford, where I used to live years ago. And he typed it out. So it's a 2.5 pager. I'm going to read it. And I almost felt kind of bad because we're moving. I found it. I'm like, oh my God, where was this? And I don't know if I read it or not. So I'm going to read this and I'm going to get out of here and skedaddle. Go cool off. I mean, I'm literally got sweat dripping off me right now. And one of the times I've experienced this kind of weather, I remember it was in southern Texas, Uvalde, Texas, in the Nueces River with some friends, and it was Easter. I'll never forget it. It was 95 degrees at 10 o'clock at night. For a Canadian, I was like, holy doodles. So, I don't even see it. These mosquitoes are all over these guys trying to find a hole and to dig in through that bug dope. It's not working, thank God. So this heat is something else, isn't it, mums? And if you're wondering which horse is which, the one with the white star is my boy, and the one with the black head is my mare. And she just wants to cuddle up, right? Now, mums, I'm busy. So listen to this. Dear Steve, the details of this encounter with Sasquatch happened to my grandfather, George Robertson, about 1920, up in the area around Prince George, BC. Here's a bit of family history to set this incident up. For me, my family history starts in Nova Scotia, where my grandfather settled after he and my grandmother moved there from Vancouver in 1922. He enlisted in the army during World War I and spent 44 months on the front lines of France as a sapper, also called pioneer or combat engineer, who is a combatant or soldier who performs a variety of military engineering duties, such as breaching, fortifications, demolitions, bridge building, and a trench construction engineer. He was involved in many various Canadian battles from Vimy Ridge, Ypres to Passchendaele and others. Needless to say, upon his return, he was a changed man who suffered from shell shock, or what we now refer to today as PTSD. When his memories and flashbacks of the war got too much for him to deal with, he would often head for a week or so hunting and or fishing by himself to sort things out. On this one particular trip he took in the autumn of 1920, he went up to the area on Prince George. On his second night there, he was awakened by the sounds of his camping equipment being thrown around his camp area. He emerged from his tent, clad only in his one-piece long johns, boots, and rifle. In the light of the moon, he observed his gear destroyed and strewn about his camping area. At first, he thought it may have been a bear that caused this mess, but thought the destruction was too much for a bear to have done in a short time in which he had heard the commotion take place. He heard a deep guttural growl behind him and turned with his rifle raised, expecting to encounter and likely to have to shoot a bear, and from the sound of it, a big one at that. Instead, illuminated by the light of the moon, he was met with what he described as an absolute giant of a man, estimated to have been standing 8 to 10 feet tall, with a huge head and massive broad shoulders, with no neck to speak of, covered in long flowing hair, which was blowing in the breeze as he stood about 30 or so feet away. As this giant stood there, his breath could be seen in the air as he made deep guttural growls, and he began to clench and opened his hands in what appeared to be a growing rage. After his experiences in the war, Granddad didn't get fazed by too much, but this encounter left him frozen in fear and disbelief as to what he was seeing. All he could muster in the way of communication was to say, "I won't shoot, just leave me and don't kill me." With that, the giant took several steps slowly backwards, turned, while looking over his shoulder, and disappeared into the woods. Granddad took less than 5 minutes to gather the items he most needed, get into his truck, and left everything else where it had laid and sped off out of the area. I guess Granddad learned that the First Nation people's accounts of these creatures going back many generations weren't just campfire stories at all, after all. That was the last time my grandfather ever went hunting or camping in the woods until the day he died. That's sad, isn't it? That just pisses me off. He related the story only once or twice to my father in the 1950s, while my dad, in his 30s, so the details are, for the most part, sparse, condensed, and basically only the highlights were related. I guess he needed to relate this incident to someone he knew would believe and not judge him before it died with him. This experience must have shook him to his core as he moved the family from Vancouver to Nova Scotia, perhaps looking at it now in an attempt to put as much distance as he could between him and what happened. My father wasn't one to tell stories or embellish the details of incidents he experienced either. That is how my grandfather raised him, as his traumatic life experiences left him with no time for bullshit or fairy tales. Like they say, the truth is easy to remember. Okay, come on, look out. My father served during World War II in the Merchant Navy on protection escorts for ships sailing to England carrying troops and supplies for the war effort. My grandfather died shortly after I was born in 1960, but from all accounts he was a man's man, as was my father. My father never told me any stories which I ever believed were not 100% truthful, and those who knew my grandfather said the same of him. As for myself, I was a municipal policeman for nearly 6 years, a military policeman for 10 years, and a BC corrections officer for nearly 26 years. Don't touch the mic. Come on. So I've spent 40 plus years in the field law enforcement. I like to think I know what is and isn't BS when I hear it, and I've kept this story to myself like Dad and Granddad for fear of what others might think of the three of us, because as you know, anyone with a first-hand experience or knows someone close to them who's had to encounter this nature neither understands, believes, or can't resist the temptation to ridicule and undermine you for their own amusement or personal gain at your expense. If not for YouTube channel content, I would likely have kept the details of this matter to myself as well, but I feel this encounter needs to be told so as it isn't, in my opinion, one of the many credible encounters which gets lost or forgotten about because no one wants to be ridiculed and believed to be crazy or a bullshitter and have their credibility put into question. Back then and now, the phrase, "you're only as good as your word," still rings loud, strong, and true. And few are willing to have their integrity or reputation called into question over something which sounds too fanciful to have happened. I wish Granddad had related more in-depth details of this encounter to my father, which he could have then eventually told to me. I was told of this incident by my father when I was at home on leave and told him I was being posted to Vancouver Island, CFB Esquimalt. He said he wanted me to be aware of these things do exist in the event that I should ever be in the woods during the course of military duties or some other reason. Esquimalt's where I was actually born and raised. I used to go down to Fleming Beach and fish off the dock with a hand line for perch and bullheads. And I had a paper route in CFB Esquimalt too when I was a little kid. He said he wanted me to be aware of these things. Okay, so read that. I've had an interest in topics of this nature for years now, and I know where his interest came from as well. And I know where his interest came from as well. I only wish he had related Granddad's encounter with me years ago and had not waited as long as he did. Same with me and my grandfather, right? My grandfather retired head of safety down at the dockyards in Esquimalt. The fear of ridicule is a powerful deterrent for many, me included, to keep some things to themselves. Yeah, not me, man, not anymore. And many others. As for the camping/survival tool I sent you, should you wish to recommend it to your YouTube followers, I found it while surfing on the American Amazon site. It is carried by Sportsman Industries and is referred to as the Pocket Chainsaw. I think I read this email already, but if I didn't, some of you probably haven't heard it. If I did, many of you might not have heard it yet, so here we go. I thought you might find it useful given your time spent in the woods. I know I wish I had one while in various exercises in the military. A big thank you to you for being a safe and trusted arena for people to relate these encounters which need to be told and not lost to the passing of time. I wish you safe and memorable treks in your quest for hunting enjoyment and spreading the knowledge of truth of this all but dismissed reality of Sasquatch existence. Yours truly, please withhold my name. Alright, there you go. I'm pretty sure I did read this, but you know what? In case I didn't, after finding it in the files when packing up our stuff to move today, I wanted to make sure it did get read. So if you guys heard it before, well, here it is again. And if you haven't heard this one, well, there you go. There's another one, right? But anyway, I guess it's time to go back in. I am sweating my frickin' face off right now. It's pouring off me, if you can see. And these guys. The temperature's dropping enough for the evening tonight. Hi, buddy. Right? And I'm going to go in. See what happens tonight. Hopefully the river doesn't burst tonight. I don't feel like moving horses and stuff all over the place. See what happens. Okay? What do you think? I think we're going to be all right, but you never know. It's just water. Nobody's going to die. Right? Right? So there you go. I'll be back on normal routine soon. It's just a little challenging right now.